The moment my older brother laughed at me in court, he believed my life was about to fall apart. "So, you really came without an attorney," he said loudly enough for half the courtroom to hear. A few people smiled. My father leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Their expensive lawyer sat beside them with the confidence of a man who believed the case was already won. Meanwhile, I stood alone at my table. No legal team. No relatives supporting me. No one whispering advice into my ear. Then something happened that nobody expected. The judge opened a thick file, glanced at the first page, and his expression immediately changed. He turned another page, then another. With every document he read, the courtroom grew quieter. Their attorney suddenly stood up. My brother looked at him and chuckled. "What is it?" The attorney didn't answer. Instead, he stared directly at me as the color drained from his face. "Oh my God." The words escaped before he could stop them. My father frowned. "What are you talking about?" The attorney swallowed hard. "Look at her record." The judge slowly removed his glasses and folded them carefully on the bench. Then he spoke the sentence that changed everything. "She doesn't need a lawyer." 5 seconds later, my father collapsed. "To understand why, you first need to understand the family I came from. My name is Savannah Brooks. At the time, I was 32 years old and serving as a commissioned officer in the United States Army. Most people described me as calm, disciplined, and reserved. I rarely raised my voice or showed strong emotions. What they never saw was the lifetime of disappointment that taught me how to stay silent. I grew up in a small town in Indiana with my parents and my older brother, Tyler. From my earliest memories, one rule governed our house: Tyler could do no wrong. No one ever said those words out loud, but their actions made it obvious. If Tyler forgot his responsibilities, everyone said he was stressed. If I forgot something, I was called irresponsible. If Tyler brought home average grades, my father insisted school wasn't everything. If I earned nearly perfect grades, he asked why they weren't perfect. As I got older, the pattern became impossible to ignore. My father treated my brother like the future king of the family. Tyler was his pride, his legacy, the son who would carry on the Brooks name. I was simply expected to stay quiet and be grateful. My mother wasn't cruel, but she spent years avoiding conflict. Whenever my father criticized me, she lowered her eyes and remained silent. By the time I was 12, I stopped expecting her to defend me. By 16, I stopped asking. The only person who truly believed in me was my grandfather, Robert Brooks. Grandpa was a retired Army colonel and a decorated veteran. He carried himself with quiet authority. He never needed to raise his voice because people listened the moment he entered a room. When I was 13, my father bought Tyler a used pickup truck while completely ignoring the academic award I had worked months to earn. That evening, I sat behind Grandpa's garage trying not to cry. A few minutes later, he walked over carrying 2 bottles of root beer. He sat beside me without saying a word. After several quiet minutes, he smiled. "You know why they keep underestimating you?" I shrugged. "Because they're measuring you with the wrong ruler." Those words stayed with me for the rest of my life. When I turned 18, I joined the Army. My father hated the decision immediately. "You'll never survive military life," he said. "You'll quit before your first year is over." I still remember standing in the kitchen listening to him. Then Grandpa calmly stood from his chair. "Funny," he said. Everyone looked at him. "You said the exact same thing about me." The room fell silent. For the first time in my life, my father had no response. The Army changed everything. Not because it was easy. It was one of the hardest challenges I had ever faced. Basic training pushed me to my limits. Deployments tested me physically and mentally. Every promotion required sacrifice, discipline, and perseverance. But for the first time in my life, effort mattered more than favoritism. Nobody cared whose daughter I was. Nobody cared whether my father approved of me. Performance was all that mattered. And I thrived. Over the next decade, I built a successful military career. Promotions came one after another. Awards followed. Leadership responsibilities continued to grow. My father barely acknowledged any of it. When I became an officer, he changed the subject. When I received commendations, he talked about Tyler. When I bought my first home, he asked why I was still single. Meanwhile, Tyler stumbled from one failure to the next. Failed businesses. Failed investments. Failed relationships. Every time he fell, my father rescued him with money, excuses, and another chance. Nothing ever changed. Then my mother passed away unexpectedly. Her death shattered what little remained of our family. My father became colder. Tyler became even more entitled. And my grandfather became the one person who kept me grounded. Every Sunday, we spoke on the phone. Sometimes we discussed military history. Sometimes we talked about sports. Sometimes we talked about nothing important at all. Looking back, those conversations became some of the most valuable moments of my life. Then one afternoon, I received the call I had always feared. Grandpa had suffered a stroke. I rushed to the hospital immediately. When I arrived, he was weak but awake. For hours, I sat beside his bed, holding his hand. At one point, he gently squeezed my fingers and smiled. "Still carrying everyone on your shoulders?" I laughed through my tears.